The trap. Captain Rayner opened his eyes slowly. At first he thought he was blind. There was only darkness, heavy and endless. He blinked again and again, but nothing changed. The blackness was so thick it felt like a weight pressing on his chest. For a moment he thought he had died, but then he felt the cold floor under his hands, hard and metallic. He was alive, but trapped. Rayner tried to move, but something stopped him. His arms would only go so far. Then the sharp pull of chains rattled in the dark. His wrists were bound by metal cuffs fixed to the wall. He cursed under his breath, his voice bouncing back at him. The echo told him the chamber was small. A cage, maybe a cell. But whose cell, and why was he here? He tried to remember the last thing. He had been on his ship, patrolling near the edge of human space. A warning alarm had sounded, red lights flashing across the control deck. Then came the sudden impact, like the ship itself had been struck by a hammer. Sparks, fire, screams of his crew, and then nothing. Now he was here, alone, in a place that smelled of rust and oil. He tugged at the chains, testing them. Strong, too strong to break. His breathing grew heavy, the air stale and metallic. His mind raced with questions. Who had captured him? Pirates, mercenaries, or worse, aliens? Rayner clenched his jaw. Humans had enemies everywhere. But this was something different. Something cold, deliberate. Then he heard it. A sound that froze his blood. Soft breathing, slow and steady, somewhere in the darkness. He wasn't alone. Rayner's instincts sharpened. He straightened, his voice firm. Who's there? The breathing stopped. Silence filled the chamber. He strained his ears, every nerve on edge. For a long moment, there was nothing, only the echo of his own heart. And then a voice low and calm. I could ask you the same. Rayner's eyes narrowed, though he still saw nothing. The voice was female, but not human. There was a strange tone, a ripple in the sound, like two voices speaking at once. Alien. Rayner's grip tightened on the chains. He hissed, "What are you?" The voice answered softly, almost amused. "A prisoner, just like you." Suspicion burned inside him. Humans had fought aliens for decades. Some races wanted humans erased. Others wanted them enslaved. Rayner knew better than to trust one in the dark. "Liar," he spat. "Your kind doesn't end up chained like this." The voice gave a small laugh, bitter and cold. "You know nothing of my kind, human." The word human echoed in his ears. She knew what he was. That meant she could see him or sense him. Rayner's skin prickled. He pulled at the chains again, metal clanging against the wall. "Show yourself," he demanded. But the dark swallowed everything. For a moment the chamber was silent again. Then came a strange noise. From beyond the walls, low and heavy, a dragging sound like claws scraping against steel. Rayner held his breath. The alien woman whispered, "It's here again." Her voice was tight with fear. Rayner asked, "What is it?" But she didn't answer. The noise moved, circling the chamber. Slow, patient, hunting. The walls vibrated as if something massive brushed against them. Rayner pressed his back against the wall. He hated the feeling of not knowing. He would rather face a firing squad than sit helpless in the dark. "Talk," he growled. "What's out there?" Finally, she spoke. "You call them hunters. We call them something else." Her breathing quickened. "If it breaks in, chains will not save us." Rayner's muscles tensed. The sound outside grew louder, closer. Every instinct screamed at him to fight. But the darkness kept him blind, helpless. His only weapon was his mind, and the voice of a stranger who might be an enemy. The chains rattled as he shifted. The alien whispered again, "Do not move, it listens." Rayner froze, heart pounding. For the first time in years, he felt something rare. Fear. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time lost meaning in the dark. But the sound outside faded, slowly. The chamber grew still, the silence heavy once more. Rayner exhaled, long and low. The alien voice broke the silence, softer now. "You see, Captain, we are not enemies in here." "Not yet." Rayner's head snapped toward the voice. "How do you know my name?" The voice didn't answer. Only the sound of breathing came back to him, calm, steady, patient. Raynor's blood ran cold. He was trapped in the dark with a stranger who already knew more than she should. And something outside was waiting, watching. The chains felt heavier, the silence sharper. Raynor whispered to himself, "This is a trap inside a trap." The stranger. The chamber stayed silent for a long time. Only the soft sound of breathing filled the dark. Captain Raynor sat against the cold wall, his wrists aching from the weight of the chains. He was a soldier, a fighter, yet now he felt like prey locked in a hunter's cage. Finally, the alien voice spoke again, low and calm. "You struggle too much, Captain. The chains will not break." Raynor gritted his teeth. Better to struggle than sit and wait to die. The voice gave a faint laugh, almost mocking. "You humans are always so quick to fight, even when blind." Raynor ignored her tone. He tried to focus on the details in her voice. Not only the strange ripple in her words, but also the way she spoke his name. She knew him, or at least knew of him. That unsettled him more than the chains. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Who are you?" Silence again. Then she said, "You may call me Saris." The name rolled off her tongue with a hiss, soft and strange. Raynor frowned. The name sounded familiar. Yes, he had read it once in a mission file. Saris was not a human name. It belonged to a species that fought humans in shadow wars along the outer colonies. They were known for stealth, for whispers, for leaving no trace of their victims. His fist clenched. "You're one of them." Saris did not deny it. Her voice stayed calm, like water flowing in the dark. "Yes, and yet I am here, chained as you are." Raynor did not believe her. Not yet. He spat back. "Why should I trust a word from your kind?" Her reply was simple, sharp. "Because if I wanted you dead, Captain, I would already be silent." Raynor's breath caught in his throat. The words hit him harder than he expected. She was right. If she had the means, if she was truly his enemy, she wouldn't waste time talking. Still, he couldn't let his guard down. Trust was dangerous, and in this dark, trust could kill. The chamber gave a sudden groan, metal creaking overhead. Dust fell from the ceiling. Raynor instinctively raised his arms though the chains dragged him back down. "What was that?" he barked. Saris's voice was different now, sharper. "The hunters test the walls. They do not like waiting." Raynor cursed under his breath. He hated this feeling of being blind, of being dependent on a stranger's words. He needed information, any detail that could help him understand. "Tell me where we are," he demanded. Saris was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "A holding chamber deep below their nests." Raynor frowned. "Whose nests?" Her answer came like a whisper of smoke, the kind that feeds on screams. The words chilled the air. Raynor had fought pirates, raiders, hostile alien ships, but never something that hunted only for screams. He wanted to press her for more, but something stopped him. Her tone wasn't mocking now. It carried weight, truth, maybe even fear. He leaned back against the wall, chains rattling. "All right," he said slowly. "If you're really trapped here, prove it." Saris gave a small sigh. Then he heard the faintest movement of chains from across the chamber. A metallic scrape against stone. She was bound too. Raynor closed his eyes, though it made no difference in the dark. For the first time since waking, he began to believe she might be telling the truth. Still, the silence between them was dangerous. It left too much space for fear to crawl in. So he asked, "Why would they lock us together?" Saris answered without hesitation, "Because together we break faster." The words sank into his chest like a blade. He didn't know if she meant the chains or their minds. The sounds outside the chamber returned. Low scraping, dragging claws, heavy footsteps circling. Raynor's breath quickened. Saris whispered, "It listens when we speak. It likes the sound of fear." Her voice trembled just slightly now. Raynor could tell she wasn't lying. She was afraid too. That thought surprised him. He had always pictured her species as cold, untouchable. But in the dark, fear made them the same. He straightened his back, forcing strength into his voice. "Then let it listen, but it won't hear fear from me." Saris gave a faint laugh, almost bitter. You speak like a soldier, Captain, but soldiers bleed the same as anyone else. Rayner clenched his fists again, the metal biting into his skin. This chamber, this darkness, this unseen hunter circling, it was more than a prison. It was a game, and the rules were not his. But he would not break, not yet. He looked into the dark where Saris's voice came from. If we're trapped together, alien, then you better understand one thing. His voice was cold, steady. I don't need to trust you to survive. But if you get in my way, I'll end you before the hunters do. The chamber went quiet again. Then Saris's soft laugh echoed. Good, Captain. I would expect nothing less. And outside, the scraping claws grew louder, closer. The silent enemy. The sound returned, slow at first. A heavy scrape against steel, dragging claws across the outer wall of the chamber. Captain Rayner stiffened, his fists tightening around the cold chains. The noise circled them like a predator testing its prey. Each step made the ground vibrate faintly under his boots. Saris whispered from the shadows, her voice sharp and tense. It knows we are awake. Rayner didn't answer. He only tilted his head, listening. The creature moved with purpose, slow, patient, not rushing, like it had all the time in the world. Then came the sound of breath, not human breath, not even alien breath. It was wet, rattling like air dragging through broken glass. Rayner's heart beat faster. He had fought enemies face to face. He had survived ship battles in burning space. But this was different. This was the sound of something that did not belong in the light. The chamber shook as the claws slammed against the wall. Metal screeched. Dust rained from the ceiling. Saris hissed sharply, "Do not speak. Do not move. It listens." Rayner pressed himself against the wall, every nerve burning. The chains rattled slightly, and he cursed under his breath. The sound stopped. The creature froze, silent as stone. For one terrible moment, Rayner thought it was gone. Then the claws scraped again, slower now. It was listening. Rayner's mind raced. This wasn't just a beast. It was smart, or at least cunning enough to wait. To test. He whispered so low it was almost breath. What does it want? Saris's answer came soft and broken. It feeds on sound, on fear, on the breaking of voices. Her tone carried a weight that made Rayner's skin crawl. The noise shifted, moving above them. Something huge dragged itself across the ceiling. Every scrape echoed like thunder in the hollow chamber. Rayner clenched his teeth, refusing to let a sound escape him. But Saris was breathing faster now, ragged, sharp. Her fear was rising. Rayner turned his head toward the darkness where she was. "Control it," he whispered harshly, but the words only made her breathing faster. The creature stopped again, directly above them. Rayner's stomach knotted. It had heard. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Rayner could feel it hanging above, massive, waiting. He closed his eyes, though there was nothing to see. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then the chamber shook violently. The wall behind Rayner dented inward as if struck by a hammer. Chains rattled, dust poured. Saris cried out despite herself, her voice sharp in the dark. The creature roared, a deep guttural sound that made the walls tremble. It had heard her. It wanted more. Rayner shouted over the noise. "Stay quiet, damn it." But it was too late. The claws slammed again, this time breaking through a crack in the wall. A sharp beam of pale light sliced into the chamber for a heartbeat. In that instant, Rayner saw it, just a glimpse. Skin like black stone, eyes like hollow pits, teeth glistening with wet hunger. Then the crack sealed as quickly as it had opened. Darkness swallowed them again. Saris was silent now, choking back fear. Rayner's breath came heavy but steady. He whispered, "It can't get through, not yet." Her voice shook. Not yet is not never. The creature dragged itself away, claws scraping, fading into the distance. But Rayner knew it wasn't leaving. It was circling, waiting for weakness, waiting for them to break. He leaned his head back against the wall, chains digging into his wrists. This was no ordinary prison. This was a cage designed not to hold bodies, but to break minds. He realized then what Saris meant. Together they were bait. Together they would break faster. And the creature would feed until nothing was left. Saris finally spoke, her voice trembling but steady enough to hold. Now you understand, Captain. This chamber is not for escape. It is for listening. The hunters keep us here until our voices are gone. Raynor growled. Then it picked the wrong prisoner. I don't break. But inside, even he wasn't sure. He had felt the weight of that thing's presence. And he knew strength alone might not save him. Silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was heavy, thick, filled with the memory of what they had just heard. Raynor's body was sore, his mind sharp but restless. He needed a plan. He couldn't sit in chains waiting for the thing outside to return. He turned his head towards Saris. If you really want to live, you're going to help me. Her reply was quiet, almost a whisper. I thought you would never ask. And somewhere beyond the wall, the claws scraped once more. Slow, deliberate, listening. Fragile alliance. The chamber had fallen quiet again, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence of predators waiting just beyond the wall. Captain Raynor kept his back against the cold surface, his mind racing. He had fought wars, led men into battles, but never had he felt so exposed. Here, in the dark, chains around his wrists, his enemy was not only outside. It was beside him too. Sarah spoke first, her voice low but steady now. You humans are stubborn. Captain, you fight even when fighting is useless. Raynor gave a short laugh, though it sounded more like a growl. Better stubborn than dead. Saris answered, Stubbornness is death. Only silence survives here. Raynor pulled at his chains, metal grinding against the stone. He didn't care if the sound carried. He wanted her to hear his resolve. You think I'll sit here waiting to break? You're wrong. I fought worse than this. I'll fight my way out too. Saris gave a slow sigh, almost amused. You humans believe every enemy is the worst until the next comes. But this chamber was built for one purpose, breaking voices like yours. Raynor turned his head toward her, even though he couldn't see. What about you? He asked, his tone sharp. You sound like you've been here before. There was a pause, long enough to make him wonder if she'd answer at all. Finally, she whispered, Because I have, Captain. The words sank into him like a blade. He clenched his fists, so you knew exactly where we were the moment you woke. Yes, she said simply, her voice steady. That is why I knew to stay silent. That is why I knew what hunts us. Raynor's anger flared. You led me into this, didn't you? Her chains shifted slightly, as if she leaned forward. Do you think I control the hunters, Captain? If I had such power, I would not be here beside you. Her words stung because they carried truth. But Raynor wasn't ready to trust her. Not yet. He exhaled slowly, forcing his voice calm. Then why help me? Why even talk? Saris's reply was soft, almost hidden in the dark. Because one voice breaks quicker than two, and I don't plan on breaking first. Raynor let the words sit between them. They were still enemies, but enemies forced into the same cage. He hated it, but he understood it. Survival had a way of erasing pride. If they wanted to live, they needed each other. A faint scratching noise came from above. Both froze. This time, it wasn't the heavy claws of the hunter. It was something smaller, sharper. Raynor whispered, Another one. Saris shook her head, her voice tight. No, this is different. This is the sound of watchers. Raynor frowned. Watchers, he repeated. Saris explained. The hunters feed, but the watchers listen. They record every scream, every cry. They're the reason this chamber exists. Raynor felt his jaw tighten. The idea of something not just killing, but listening, collecting, was worse than death itself. Then we give them nothing, he growled. No fear, no screams. Saris gave a bitter laugh. Strong words, Captain, but even stone cracks under enough pressure. Raynor ignored her doubt. He pressed his shoulders against the wall and began to think. Chains, walls, hunters, watchers. This place was built to hold and break. But no prison was perfect. Every cage had a weakness. He He turned toward her again, his voice sharp. You've been here before. Then you know a way out. Her silence stretched too long. Finally, she said, There's no way out, Captain. Rayner cut her off, his voice fierce. There's always a way out. For the first time since waking, Saris's voice changed. It lost its calm tone and carried something else. Curiosity. You sound certain. Why? Rayner smirked, though she couldn't see it. Because humans don't stay in cages. We break them. The scraping above them faded slowly. The watchers had gone, but the weight of their presence remained. Rayner leaned back again, chains rattling softly. He whispered, almost to himself, You hear that, Saris? They think they can break us, but they don't know humans. To his surprise, Saris gave a low laugh. It was short but real. Maybe, she said, maybe your stubbornness is not useless after all. For the first time, Rayner felt something shift between them. Not trust, not yet, but something fragile. An alliance born not from choice, but from the silence of the dark. And outside, the claws dragged once more across the walls. The hunter was returning, as if to remind them both that time was running out. The shocking claim. The chamber had gone quiet again. Rayner leaned against the wall, his breath steady, his mind burning with questions. Saris sat in the dark across from him, silent, unreadable. The air between them was thick, filled with the weight of unspoken words. Finally, she broke the silence. Captain, you still believe this is only a cage? Rayner frowned. What else could it be? Saris whispered, a test. Her words echoed in the chamber, colder than the chains around his wrists. Rayner narrowed his eyes. A test for who? Saris hesitated. Then her voice dropped to almost nothing. For you, Captain. Rayner's jaw tightened. He thought she was mocking him, playing some alien trick. But her tone was too serious, too heavy. He spat back. Why me? Why not you? Saris gave a bitter laugh. Because it is not my voice they want. It is yours. The words hit him harder than he expected. Rayner shook his head, refusing to accept it. You're lying, he growled. But Saris leaned forward, the rattle of her chains sharp in the silence. Am I, Captain? Or do you already know why they would choose you? Rayner froze. Memories cut through his mind. Orders whispered in war councils. Missions that had no record. Things he was never meant to speak of. He clenched his fists. How do you know anything about me? Saris's voice was calm, almost soft. Because my people were watching you long before this cage. The words made his blood run cold. He hissed, spies. Traitors. Saris interrupted, her tone sharper now. No, not spies, not traitors. Watchers, Captain, the same ones above us now. But they did not only listen to your screams. They listened to your choices, your victories, your survival. Rayner's mind raced. He had always been told humans were nothing more than prey to alien predators. But Saris's words twisted everything. If what she said was true, then the hunters had chosen him, not by accident, but by design. He spat. You expect me to believe they're interested in me? That I'm some experiment? Saris's reply was colder than steel. No, Captain, not an experiment. A weapon. The chains felt heavier around Rayner's wrists. His chest burned with anger. Uneventful. I'm a soldier. But Saris whispered back, almost like a secret meant only for him. You are both, and you are more. That is why I freed you from their first cage. That is why we are here now. Rayner's heart pounded. Her words shifted everything. She had freed him, not the hunters. Which meant his capture had not gone as planned. Which meant Saris was not just another prisoner. She had her own reasons. Dark reasons. Why, he demanded. Why would you risk your life for me? Saris went silent, the pause stretching so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, Because, Captain Rayner, you are the only human who can end this war. The words filled the chamber like fire. Rayner's breath caught in his chest. He had been called many things in his life. Soldier, captain, survivor. But never savior. Never the one who could end it all. He whispered back, almost to himself. You're wrong. Saris's reply was soft but unshakable. No, Captain. It is the only truth that matters. Outside the chamber, the claws scraped again. The hunter returned. But for the first time since waking, Raynor was no longer thinking only about escape. He was thinking about the weight of Saris's claim, a claim that could change not only his life, but the fate of every human. The escape attempt. The claws dragged closer. This time they did not scrape lazily. This time they struck hard and fast, shaking the chamber like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling. Cracks spread across the walls. The hunter was not waiting anymore. Raynor pulled against his chains with all his strength. The metal cut into his skin, warm blood sliding down his wrist. He didn't care. He would rather break his body than sit here, helpless. Saris hissed from across the dark. "Stop, Captain! You cannot fight it with your bare hands." Raynor snarled back. "I can fight with more than hands." The claws tore into the wall again. A chunk of stone broke free, slamming onto the floor. Light spilled through the crack, pale and sickly green. And for the first time, Raynor saw the outline of Saris. She was tall, lean, her skin faintly silver in the glow, her chains binding her to the opposite wall. Her eyes burned bright like shards of glass in the dark. Alien, dangerous, but alive. The hunter roared, the sound rattling Raynor's chest. Saris shouted, "If it breaks through, we die, unless we move now." Raynor spat blood from his lip. "Then help me. How do we get out?" Saris pulled at her chains too, but not blindly like Raynor. Her fingers traced the cuffs, searching. "There is a weakness," she whispered. "These restraints were not built for your kind. They react to sound vibrations, not brute force." Raynor's eyes narrowed. "Then sing to them," he growled. Saris gave a bitter laugh. "My voice is not enough, Captain, but yours was chosen for this." Raynor froze for only a heartbeat. Then another strike shook the chamber, the walls splitting wider. The hunter's claws pushed through long, jagged, dripping with black slime. No more time for doubt. He shouted, voice raw, "What do I do?" Saris's voice cut through the chaos. "Speak, Captain, not with rage, not with fear. Call the chain as if you command it. That is why they trapped you here." Raynor wanted to laugh at the madness of it, but the wall shattered again, another claw stabbing inside. He had no choice. He closed his eyes, focused, and spoke. Not words of war, not curses of anger, but a command deep from his chest. "Open," he growled. His voice filled the chamber, deep and sharp like steel. The cuffs around his wrists trembled. The chains vibrated, singing with a strange hum. Then, with a sharp crack, they shattered. Raynor stumbled forward, free for the first time. Pain rushed through his arms, but he ignored it. Saris cried out, "Now me, Captain." He turned, gripping her chains. The cuffs glowed faintly under his touch. He repeated the command, stronger this time. "Open." The cuffs shuddered, cracked, and with a flash of pale sparks, they broke. Saris collapsed forward, catching herself on her knees. She looked up at Raynor, her glowing eyes unreadable. "Now we run," she hissed. But before they could move, the wall exploded inward. The hunter forced its way through, massive and terrible. Its body was covered in black, stone-like skin, its teeth dripping with slime. It filled the chamber with a stench of rot and hunger. Raynor grabbed Saris by the arm, pulling her up. "Where's the exit?" he shouted. Saris pointed to the crack where the wall had broken. "Through there before it seals again." The hunter roared, its claws swiping across the chamber. The ground split where they had been standing a moment earlier. Raynor pushed Saris forward. "Go, I'll hold it." Saris whipped around, fury in her voice. "You'll die, and then so will I." We moved together. They sprinted toward the crack, the green light spilling brighter now. The hunter lunged, its claws slashing down. Raynor grabbed a broken chain from the ground, swinging it with all his strength. The metal whipped across the creature's face, sparks flying. It screamed, staggering back just enough. Saris slipped through the crack first, pulling Raynor behind her. The walls groaned, stones collapsing as they squeezed through. The hunter roared one last time, the sound chasing them into the tunnel beyond. They tumbled into a narrow passage lit by the same eerie green glow. Both breathing hard, both bleeding, both alive. Rayner leaned against the wall, chest heaving. Sarah stared at him, eyes sharp. You did what no human has ever done, Captain. You spoke to the chains. You broke them. Rayner wiped blood from his lip, his voice steady. Then maybe I'm not just human after all. The tunnel stretched ahead, twisting into shadows. Behind them, the hunter clawed at the broken wall. It would not stop. It would follow, and both of them knew. This was only the beginning. Revelation in the dark. The tunnel stretched endlessly before them. Its walls pulsed with faint green veins of light, as if the rock itself was alive. Rayner ran with Saris close beside him, their footsteps echoing in the hollow space. Behind them, the hunter's roars carried through the stone, shaking the ground. It was following, always following. They reached a wider chamber, not as small as the first prison, but still cloaked in shadow. Here the light grew stronger, spilling across strange carvings on the walls. Rayner slowed, his eyes narrowing as he studied them. Symbols, circles, lines like constellations, but sharper, deliberate. They weren't just decoration. They were words. Saris stepped ahead, her glowing eyes fixed on the markings. This is no ordinary nest. It is a sanctum. Rayner frowned. At what? She touched one of the carvings, tracing it with her long fingers. A place of memory. The hunters keep their trophies here. Not of bodies, but of voices. Rayner's stomach twisted. He could almost hear faint whispers echoing through the stone, like ghosts trying to speak. He muttered, "This place is hell." Saris shook her head, her voice calm but sharp. "No, Captain. This place is history." Rayner gave her a hard look. "You know too much about this. More than any prisoner should." Saris lowered her hand slowly, her chains clinking faintly. She didn't meet his eyes. "I told you before. I freed you. I brought you here." The words cut deeper this time. Rayner's chest tightened. "You what?" Her voice was steady now, unafraid. "I chose you, Captain. Not the hunters, not the watchers. Me." The chamber felt smaller, the air heavier. Rayner's voice was sharp as a blade. "Why? Why me?" Saris stepped closer, her silver skin faintly glowing in the sickly green light. "Because you're not just a soldier, not just human." Rayner froze. Her eyes locked on his. "You are the last echo of their voice." He shook his head violently. "Speak sense," he growled. Saris whispered. "Long before your people rose, the hunters tested another race. They broke them, bent them, until one rebel carried a spark they could not kill. That spark passed on, hidden in bloodlines, buried in human flesh." She raised a hand and pointed directly at his chest. "And now it burns in you." Rayner's heart pounded like a drum. It was madness. Impossible. He spat. "I don't believe you." But Saris's tone never wavered. "Then explain why the chains obeyed you. Explain why the hunters circle you and not me. Explain why your voice carries command. You're not chosen by accident. You are their mistake, their fear." The roars echoed louder behind them, closer now. The hunter was breaking through the tunnel walls, desperate to reach them. Rayner stepped back, shaking his head. "No, I'm just a man. Nothing more." Saris's voice grew sharp, urgent. "You are more, Captain. You are the weapon they could never control. And now, both our species will burn or survive by what you choose." Rayner clenched his fists, his breath ragged. The chamber seemed to spin around him, the carvings glowing brighter. Whispers rose in the air, not from Saris, not from the hunter, but from the walls themselves. Voices, hundreds, thousands overlapping, calling his name. Rayner dropped to one knee, clutching his head. The voices filled his mind, some begging, some commanding. Saris stepped close, her hand on his shoulder. "Do you hear them?" she whispered. "They are waiting for you." Rayner looked up, his eyes burning with a strange light he had never felt before. The hunter roared again, bursting into the chamber's edge, its massive body squeezing through. Saris leaned close, her voice sharp with urgency. "Choose now, Captain. Stay human, and we both die here. or accept what you are and end the war. The chamber shook, the whispers rose, the hunter charged. And in that final moment, Rayner opened his mouth. Not in fear, not in rage, but in power. The walls themselves trembled at his voice.